What's up, everybody? Welcome back to FNG Academy. I just had a quick announcement. I'm proud to say that we've been helping people get selected for 3 years now. I've been getting a lot of messages about people thanking us and saying that they just graduated from selection and they got selected. People graduating the Q course. One of my buddies just sent me a video from the Charlie committee. He asked, if you guys have ever heard of the FNG Academy, raise your hands. And all their hands went up, and it just filled me with pride. So part of the way that we do that is making sure that you guys are physically fit and ready for selection. And the way we've been doing that for the past couple of years is by sending you to a Green Beret we know and trust, Kevin over at 18 Alpha Fitness. So if you want to get selected, you need to be in the best shape possible, and you need a programmer who knows what they're talking about. So go check out Kevin over at 18 Alpha Fitness. Use code word BUCK to get a discount. Tell him we sent you and hook you up. Congrats to everyone who's been getting selected lately, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of Beers and Breakdowns. If you haven't noticed, we got Ruben.
That's right. By popular demand, I appreciate you guys. Hey, I'm surprised I got invited back, but hey, we're here now.
Yo, you killed it on that first one. People loved you,
Dude,
bro.
I was like, I appreciate y'all, man.
When the bird came in and landed on the boat.
That journey, I was like, bro. Dude, just that bird scene just really bothered me. That movie, like, only for the fact that it's like funny, and in theaters I couldn't laugh because it's like such a sad part. But in my head, I'm like, oh my god. But I appreciate you guys. I had Buck dying.
The fact that the story has more depth than we knew. Like, what the
There
fuck?
was more to it. You've been thinking about it for
There was a
like 6 years.
backstory to the whole bird scene about a traumatic experience in the movie theater.
Dude, it sucked, man. It's like you just want to laugh out loud, but you just know everybody in the theater is gonna look at you like, bro, like not this one, you know.
In this episode, we're gonna do Gen Kill episode 4, Generation Kill. What are your thoughts on Gen Kill?
I mean, it's a great show. Obviously, like everybody in the military has always heard of it, seen it. You know, there's some stuff that I guess you could have like mixed feelings on, like character development stuff, you know. But I think overall the show's pretty awesome. I would say that still, I think my favorite though is Band of Brothers.
Oh, for
like
sure.
Band of Brothers, just like out of the writers of that show, just killed it, man. Like I don't know,
Band
It's
of
just
Brothers is
different
on
than,
a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like it's different. So I'm not trying to like downplay this one. This one's great, but I think like Band of Brothers still my top.
Absolutely. For sure. I don't even think it's comparable. I'll be a little harsher about it than you are. Like,
Trying to be nice because somebody's
you're
like,
trying
"Oh,
to
my
be-
favorite's Generation."
Yeah, like-
Somebody's gonna write in the comments
well,
like,
you could
"Oh."
be wrong, and you're wrong.
Not in this, no, not in today's day, bro. Today,
Yeah.
if
Everybody's
everybody's
right.
gonna be on the same page.
Kurt's
So.
probably watching this right now going, this guy.
Yeah.
Kurt loves Generation Kill.
Kurt joined the military because of Generation Kill.
Oh, that's why. See, there's always a story,
Yeah.
bro. There's always a story.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when people get real passionate about, like, "Oh, I like this though," and you're like, "Why?" It's like, "Well, cause I got a tattoo of it or something."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, that's why you have to defend it," you know?
Because that night I didn't pull out, and I have a son because of this show.
It's like Generation Kill motivated me to be a better man.
It's like put a condom on. I was like, would these boys wear condoms? I don't think so. It's like, this show is okay. I think this specific, I like the show quite a bit, but it's almost, for me, being a veteran, this show's like depressing because it's so much about command and how shitty they are and like exposing poor command decisions.
Because that's, I guess, I feel like it kind of like exploits that. I'm not saying that every unit is perfect or every leadership structure is perfect, but this show kind of goes a little bit extra where it's like everybody's just incompetent or just
Yeah,
like,
everyone's
you know,
a piece
just
of
everybody's
shit.
just like kind of like just like screwing up, and it's like, well, damn, bro, like, you know, like out of all these like different protocols, and nobody can seem to get it right, you know. So that's the reason why I told you, is like some of the stuff is like cool, like obviously it makes the show more interesting,
Yeah.
but I do feel like it gives it a bad look because, you know, there's people back that, like, you know, there's like we would never do that, you know.
Yeah.
And then but this show's just like, yeah, this guy couldn't even reload a gun, you know.
Yeah.
This guy couldn't do this. Like, no, there's a lot of, like, too many things going wrong at the same time.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
but-
So I think they leaned a little heavy in on just destroying everyone, and not so much just because like I feel bad for the people they're destroying, more just because it's like depressing as a veteran to watch this and be like, some was like that, but you made a whole show about all the parts, and it's like, gosh damn, like I don't want to relive like fearing command and their decision making process and like the stupid things that have to happen. I mean, it gets into the weeds, and it's
So I feel like if I'm playing devil's advocate, maybe that's like I mean, I never looked to see like why they created the show in the stance that they did, but maybe that's like the reason why is to make people aware of like, hey, your bad calls or poor leadership could lead to this. Maybe it's
Absolutely,
like kind of more like it like that, like never repeat itself.
We got an inquiry in the whole platoon.
Yeah, ours ain't the only platoon that ain't shooting straight. You all got your hands full of Captain America.
Yeah, every time he hits a pebble, he thinks the whole company's being ambushed.
Still not know it.
Captain America's gone, dog. You see that look in his eyes? Like he's afraid if he takes his shit, Hodge is gonna come crawling out of his.
We got the best platoon commander and the whole battalion's on his ass because he did the right thing and stood up to Encino, man.
It ain't the Hodge is gonna kill us, man. His command.
Whew.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot, dude. To be in combat and to be more afraid of command than the enemy.
Yeah, I think it's a trip because I feel like their command probably has no idea how their like soldiers actually feel too. They're probably super disconnected, because I'm sure that they're they would address it if they actually knew how little confidence they had in them.
But it's true because like anyone who's been in the military has had that experience where you're so afraid of the cog or of the entire operation of the military and like command and UCMJ and how all that works that it's like you're more worried about not getting in trouble than you are about just focusing on the mission.
Right. Like sometimes I feel like it's you're trying to just focus on your job, and then there's all this extra stuff that comes with it because you're in the military, and then the politics come into play. You got like some captain trying to make major, so they're like trying to go and volunteer your guys to do extra stuff, and you're like, hey bro, like we're just trying to do our stuff, and it's happened, and I've seen it happen, and sometimes you're just like sitting there like, all right, like well, orders are orders, so you got to do whatever they say. So I can feel for these guys. They're just kind of like, man, like not trying to go and follow these guys anymore. Like they don't have any vote of confidence, and no matter what though, they're still gonna have to do what they do because we're in the military.
I got to experience war in a different set, was like in the special operations mode, and that became way more focused on mission than command. It's like, listen, we trust you guys. Do what you got to do. Go make it happen. Come back, and then just let me know what happened. And that's how you want to operate.
Yeah.
Because then we could focus on the mission. We could do our best. We can get done, and we'll brief you after the fact, and we'll let you know how it went down. And if really popped off, then it is what it is. We'll deal with it.
I remember, we were in Iraq and everything was going fine, right? We were like, it was only like a task force, so there was only a battalion commander who was all just for just, hey, you guys handle what you guys need. If you guys need anything from me, let me know. But in that, we never seen them, right? And then there's a first sergeant and a CS sergeant major who decided to take a visit from Kuwait over to where we're at. And then, like, as soon as they come visit, then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you guys aren't wearing PT belts. Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. It's like stuff like that. And I was like, what are we, like, we're in, like, enemy territory. You want us to wear PT belts?
Yeah.
It's just, like, crazy, like, the disconnect.
You want me to wear a shirt that says, shoot me?
We were pretty much, I was like, hey, we're over here, And then on top of that, like, we're using these, like, little Polaris vehicles to get our guys to pick them up for a shift, drop them off, right? Not every single one had seatbelts, but, it's like those things don't go super fast, right? So we just would pile everybody up, get them there, get them to their shift, drop them off, and then next guys would go off shift. It was just, it would work because we lived about a mile from the little clamshell that we worked out of. And of course, like, he came through and he's like, oh, there's only 2 vehicles with seatbelts, and it was like, bro, what are we worried about right now? Like, are we like, this is what we're worried about? It's like we're deployed in this environment, and you're like, so, and I get it, like, some of the stuff, but that's what I mean. Sometimes things like the focus of people, it goes in different directions, and if you don't agree with it, you'll definitely feel some type of way,
Seatbelts.
Yeah, bro. PT belts and seatbelts was that's what they worried about. It wasn't about any of the other stuff.
This is a seatbelt right here. You hold on to something as hard as you can. If we go rolling, good luck, buddy.
It was just funny because I thought they were messing with us, bro. And they're like, no, this is happening. I was like, for sure.
You asking me to speak frankly, sir?
Yes. Well,
sir, it's just that you're incompetent, sir.
Damn, that smile went away real quick. He said, not that frank.
I'm doing the best I can.
Sir, it's not good enough.
Sheesh. he got secondhand damage. He was like,
Emotion.
yeah. He said, "Words hurt, you know."
How dare you talk to my wife like that?
You asked for it.
You
like,
asked. That's what you get. You asked them to be frank. You pushed for it
Yeah,
multiple times.
You're like, please,
Please tell
in front
me.
of all the men.
Yeah. This is the perfect time and place to do this
Yeah, bro.
conversation.
That's like one thing with like you're like in a leadership position, especially if you know somebody has an issue with you. You probably want to take them, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And you could have an open talk one-on-one, but you probably don't want to do it in front of everybody
Right.
else, especially if you.
Because then once it's out, it's spreading
It's
like
done,
wildfire.
bro. Yeah, and everybody's gonna talk
Yeah.
about it. I guarantee you, these guys are gonna tell everybody
They're
else.
like,
And no matter how truthful or hurtful the words are, somebody's gonna laugh about it.
Oh,
bro. It
yeah.
doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, you should have seen his face."
Yo, real
This will
world,
hurt.
you would have heard in the back like world star. Someone's filming that shit. It's like, but what he could have done better is instead of just walking away,
Yeah,
butthurt,
open it up.
He said,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Yeah.
what could I do better? How do you feel like I could be better and do better? If it's not good enough, what do you think that I need to improve on?"
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, you're incompetent." And I'd just be like, "Oh, in what way?" Like,
Yeah.
I'd want to know. Like,
Right.
if that's so. Yeah, that and it made him look 10 times worse because he did that. He just shut down
And
and,
walked
then got
away.
into his feelings. And I feel like when you're in those positions, like, you can't take it personal if it's like about business. He didn't say like, "I don't like the color of shirt you're wearing. I don't like your face." He said, "You're incompetent." That's strictly professional, like critique.
The part that's kind of like irritating to watch about this too, and this may maybe look like a douchebag, but it's like these guys aren't getting into like they're getting into like one or two ticks every once in a while, and really it's just a lot of moving around, a lot of boredom. So to tell a commander that like you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing, it's like you don't even know yet. Like you're not even getting into it.
It's funny if you like, because like I think when you're in charge of people, there's always at least one person that's like thinks that they should be in charge, And sometimes it's like if you flip it back on them, and be like, "Okay, what would you do? What would you do different?" And they'll be like, "Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know that you're,
I was
and
not
it's,
in
like,
this
funny.
position, otherwise I would know.
So it is kind of funny because sometimes I see it from both ways. It's like because I was like that. I was arrogant when I first like got in. I remember my first sergeant. I used to kind of like be like, "Oh, shouldn't we do this?" And I wouldn't talk back to him, but I definitely sometimes I think like kind of undermine him indirectly, And then so a couple times he told me like, "Hey, bro, like I gave you a direction, like go do it," And so it came to the point that he was like, "What would you do different?" And then at the time I thought I had all the answers, but then I was like, "Oh, I'd do this." He's like, "Well, you can't because this." I'm like, "Well, okay, then we'll do this." He's like, "Well, no, you can't because of that." And I was like, "I guess I'll shut the fuck up then,"
Yeah. Right
So the
that.
thing is, I was like, "Yeah, maybe this guy does know a little bit more than me," So I think it's like taking that slice of humble pie and be like, "Yeah, gotta just wait in my lane,"
Yeah, it's like, is this guy incompetent? Maybe, but are you like knee deep in the all the time? Are you in multiple gunfights? Are you having all these issues? Like, there's just little stupid shit that's just irritating a bunch of bored men. And when men hang around too much and don't have a lot to do, boredom sets in. They start getting frustrated.
Honestly, I think that is the worst part. Is like it's never when you're busy.
Right.
You don't have time to think about like whatever. It's when there's the lull that's
Yeah.
when there's like friction.
Right. And so the lull is, it's not to knock these guys. It's very normal, for a lot of units to have that lull. But it's like it's not like you guys are in combat taking ticks day in and day out, and he's making decisions that are just putting all of you in danger. He made some stupid decisions because it's just the overzealousness to get into combat is one of the major issues with this entire everything that goes wrong in this show. Almost is about too little combat and too much desire to be in combat.
I feel like it was just kind of like they're trying to prove themselves, the rite of passage type stuff, and it makes sense because like I had friends that were infantry and they never got deployed, and that killed them, right?
Yeah.
And then for me, it's like I was an aviation cat, got deployed with an attack unit and special forces units, and I don't get me wrong, it was an experience, whatever, but like, and I do feel like like it was different though because obviously I don't do what you do, I don't get into like gunfights and stuff like that, like I worked on the attack helicopters, made sure they're going. And a couple times, they had us get in defensive positions because they thought like our FOB was going to get overran, but we never had to do anything, And even in that, there's people that were just like all excited about it, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, now I get my chance." And I was like, "Bro, like if you really wanted to do that, you would have went infantry,
Yeah, you
So
get
I just
signed up
kind
for
of like some people sometimes I see through it, I'm like, "Well, bro, you didn't join that, like to do that." But for like the infantry guys, I could see where that like is like a huge incentive, not incentive, but like an attraction, because it's like you joined
Right,
to get into
to do
combat
that.
and then you never get to do it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You know,
But a lot of mistakes come from that. There's
for
a
sure,
lot of
100%,
mistakes when
yeah.
it's like, I want a piece because it's going to be a bullet on my NCOER or on my officer evaluation. I want to go home and say that I was in combat. I want the CIB, the combat infantryman badge. And it's like, but you are pushing too much when the combat's just not there for you to have. And oftentimes that's way more dangerous than when combat is at your doorstep and you just have to react to the situation and do the best that you can.
It's one of the most regrettable incidents of my entire career. And Fernando takes full responsibility for it. But you should be aware,
Ah, this
the
guy's
loss
voice.
of those colors
the Marlon Brando.
will be more than offset by the battle streamers we will earn in this war.
Battle
And we
streamers.
will earn 'em.
Get the fuck out of here.
That I know.
Dude, I can't stand this guy's character, bro.
Question.
Yeah.
So, like, when you guys are out there and you're kind of stuck out there for a long time, and let's say you're not doing much, or you feel maybe like dejected, will a speech, regardless of what they say, like kind of boost morale, no matter how corny it may be? Even somebody like that saying just random, essentially hyperbole.
Oh, for sure. Speeches work great in
Yeah.
combat zones. Like, you wouldn't think it, but it's like we need that. It's like we're just sitting out here. It seems like it's useless. This is dumb. This isn't like what we expected. And then if you get the right leader to give the right speech, it could really like amp you up and make you feel good.
I think it's because it's even part of the leadership thing, right? You're providing a purpose. So like the speech is like dictating like what your purpose is, why you're doing this bullshit, why you're in like this 130-degree heat, working 16-hour days or whatever, doing whatever. So I feel like the speech just kind of helps remind you like you're here for a reason, you know? So like you're right. Like sometimes like people that are not good at speeches at all, which I've heard a couple of those too, where they're like they think they're in Independence Day and they're like, you know, we will fight, and I'm like, and then dude's like, and no offense, but it's like
No offense.
well, it's because I already know it's like the dude who works in the office admin thing, like S1, and I'm like bro, like you're not sizzling like we are, you know what I mean? Like, you know, but he's just like, hey guys, good job from the AC. It's like, bro, it doesn't have the same effect versus like somebody who's like, you know, like we had a special forces guy like come through, right? And he was just like, hey man, he was like, you know, I know that like, you know, it sucks to be out here. He's like, but like we appreciate you guys, you know, helping us out. And that little bit, I was like, well, you know, like cool. That like it was kind of like, all right, you know, we're here doing something, you know, because sometimes it's easy to get like, you know, when it's like that lull, you're kind of just like, damn, where would I be if I was back home? What would I be doing? And you start thinking about stuff like that, and that like kind of just starts killing the morale a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times information is compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. So what command does with speeches, or SF guys especially like to do with support, is because support is also oftentimes left in the dark. So it's like, you guys don't know what's going on. You don't know.
That is so true. That's 100% true, bro.
It's like, so we could help motivate you guys, and it happens to us too, right? Like our command doing it for us, or, you know, so it's like just exposing a little bit of knowledge of what's happening, so you're inside of, the bigger picture. And so instead of being like, sit here and do this and be ready, which happens to all of us, right? Somebody walks in and says, hey, you're sitting here doing this to be ready because this might happen, and we're waiting for this to happen, and if it doesn't, then we're going to do this, and we have till this time to know what that decision is going to be. And now all of a sudden sitting there is like, oh, yeah, all right,
Yeah.
because at this time we're going to know, and we're either going to do this or this, and we're sitting here because of this.
It's like that saying that hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
But you have no idea what you're hurrying up and waiting for.
Right. We signed up to help a mission.
Right.
Regardless of how we do that, where we get used at, what tool we're getting used at, I just want to know that we're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you could fall into a lull and feel like you're not doing that at all. But what bothered me about this, every time this guy speaks, is, we're about battle streamers and we're chasing
It's
combat.
like accolades. It's all accolades, bro. That's what it is.
We're going to have battle streamers on our thing. Like, okay,
I mean,
Nick Nolte.
it doesn't help that it sounds like he smoked like 2 packs of cigarettes before he did the speech, too.
Since he was like 3 years old, you know, it's like his mom was blowing cigarette smoke in his mouth for.
It is funny because I feel like even the Godfather would be like, "Hey, speak up, speak up, bro."
I was like, if the Godfather sat down and listened to this, it was like, do you realize that's how stupid you sound? Like, you sound so ridiculous because you're speaking, first of all, from a leadership position, but clearly from a position where you haven't experienced combat and you got your little wiener wet and you're like, I'm gonna go stick it into something. But somebody who's like really been shot at and then been in the weeds is like, you're begging for something that you don't want.
It's so funny you say that because I feel like obviously since I'm not an infantry dude, right? And like I do more of the support side, right? So I work in attack units, but we don't engage the enemy directly, right? But it's just crazy that there would be so many people who are like, man, I should have switched my MOS, and they'd say stuff like that. I'm like, bro, like you don't really mean that, because
Right,
I'm like,
no.
bro, if you really wanted to do that, you would have just, joined. And like anybody, like I have one of my best buddies, Sar Morales is he's an infantry cat, and it's just funny because I hear his experience. I'm like, yeah, like there's a reason, like his experience. It sounds like it was like very like dedicated, disciplined and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, for sure that's not my cup of tea. I would definitely that probably wouldn't have been the environment that I would do the best at, right? So it's just funny, like when people aren't have no combat experience, they always like pray and like hope and stuff. But it's like kind of like they don't even know what they're really wishing for. It's
Right.
like they just want, like, just like you said. I think they just want that, like,
They want the accolades.
that story to be like, yeah, I was shot at.
I did
and
that.
I
I was
did
the
that.
man.
And it's like, yeah, I guess, I guess if that's what you want,
And if you get it, you also get the PTSD and the anxiety.
See,
and,
they don't talk about all that stuff. That's why I told I laughed because I even told my recruiter, because he's like, hey, you don't want to go infantry? He's like, no, I'm good, man. And there's another infantry cat that was also a recruit there, and he's like, oh, and then he's like, yeah, he's like, you'd be a good infantryman. And I told him, I was like, bro, if I wanted to like get shot at, I would just stay in LA. I don't even have to leave anywhere, bro. Trust me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm trying to get away from that. Like that's what I'm trying to do. So it's like, I don't know, it's funny, man.
It's super important that people join the military understands, like, you don't have to be combat MOS. Like, you don't have to take pride in that. Don't get pulled into it if it's not who you are and it's not what you want. I wanted to go to that just because, like, I didn't have a dad. I didn't know what I was capable of. I wanted to be tested by people I admired. And it's like, you could do that in any way, shape, or form. Like, but for me, I wanted to know what I would do in that situation. It was a personal
It's like a test of
journey.
metal where you're just like, I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
I was like, I've been through all this stuff, but I've never had a dad to tell me I was worth a shit. I never had anybody that like ominous dominus me as a man or as tough, so I don't know. And so I was just on a quest to find out.
I think that's a misconception too. A lot of people were like, always assume like people join, they're like, oh, like, like low income, broken homes, stuff like that. It's like, we all come from different sides or different like environments. So like you, right, you're like, hey, like my dad wasn't around, I wanted to prove myself. For me, it's like I had like two parents who've been married for like 35 years. Like I got straight A's in high school and stuff. I wasn't like a dumb guy. And that's like, I was attracted to like being part of the military. My dad served, and I really like the idea of like trying to like get discipline. Like for me, like I feel like school came easy, sports came easy, but I was like, imagine like if I had to go to an environment to try, and then like, but I would never force myself to do it because I'm lazy. Like, I was like, that wasn't, what I wanted to do. So it's like funny to hear the different like stories, like that. And like you said, everybody always assumes like, oh, you're in the military, you're in the army, oh, so you're an infantryman. It's like, no, like, oh, you probably had like shitty upbringing. Like, no, it's like, no, like I actually fucking had a really good,
you're the poor
upbringing.
Trashy kid.
That's what I'm saying, bro. And it's just funny because I've heard so many. There's so
don't
many
assume.
stereotypes.
Maybe.
Sorta.
None of your business.
It's like, get out of my head.
Stop.
But it's just funny though, man. You hear like so many like stereotypes. You hear so many stereotypes, bro, that it kills me because I'm just like because somebody tries to put you in a box, they're like, oh, you probably this, and I was like, nah, bro, you're completely off, and they're like, oh, and then like my dad was just like, no, man, like we're like he had it good, he just was didn't have
He had it
discipline.
too good.
And then
He
like
joined the
my
military 'cause he had it too
my
good.
dad was just like, yeah, he had to learn how to like be serious and stuff,
Which is
And,
funny because when you're describing yourself, you're describing Abel. It's like we're highly capable, highly intelligent, lazy. It's like we have all the makings to do anything we want in the world, but we don't want to do. That's like Abel's like mantra. He's like, I can do anything I want in the world. I don't want to.
That's my cousin.
Life is beautiful.
Yeah, he's
And
like
he's the happiest dude
it's just
I've
funny
ever
because
met.
you can conceptualize like, dude, I'd be so freaking successful. But it's so early. It's like
It's so early.
Before he left, me and him went and ran in the park.
yeah, we did.
And I was like, why the are you doing this? I was like,
Abel really did do that.
anything you want
He
to
was-
do. We're like jogging around the park.
dude,
and I was
it was
like-
so funny because like I imagined like if I recruited there, he'd be like, "Shut the fuck up, Abel. Shut the fuck up," like, you know. But he was even telling me, he's like, "Bro, you could just go to college." And I was like, already did like 2 years of college, and I was just like, man, I don't want to like. I was just tired of the same routine, the 9 to 5 job. I'm like, I don't want any of that. Like, I want to go somewhere to be pushed. And then like, you know, they like offered me the chance to work on an attack helicopter, and I was like, you know, 20. So I was like, dude, I'll be 20 years old working on a $32 million helicopter. Like that sounds way better on a resume
cool.
to me, you know? And then it did work out. Like I was telling him I think last we spoke on the last show, like I was going to line up interviews for, you know, different companies and stuff. And I got interviews with like Boeing and Northrop Grumman. And then now it looks like, you know, one of them is going to be like going through. So, you know, as far as like kind of setting up the future, like it did help, you know, like,
Hell yeah.
and even my dad was just saying like, yeah, man, like take advantage of it. But my dad warned me, he's like, hey man, he's like, you know, you can have a sense of humor, but make sure you don't say that shit out loud too much. And then like, and my dad was just like, yeah, he's like, you're going to be funny, but you're going to be strong. And then dude, the day of my graduation, my drill sergeant went to my parents and like, yeah, no, he was real funny. He was real funny, but he got to run a lot. And I was like,
He's real funny.
yeah, bro.
Can you imagine somebody with a mouth like his and basic?
Hell yeah. Making everyone around him
Dude,
happier.
It was just funny though, bro, because that was like my role, bro. Like,
Yeah.
But it's just like, yeah, man, yeah, I paid for it a couple of times. You know, I'd like, of course, like I'd whisper something just as everybody gets quiet, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, damn, bro, like, you know, I'd be talking shit about the drill sergeants. Like, one of them had really skinny legs, and I was just like, and so like, I remember Drill Sergeant Green, he's a friend on the Facebook. So like, and I remember one time
I hope he's squatting before this comes out, bro. He's just like,
Dude, he was wearing. So we were always. It was like cold. It was February when I was in Fort Leonard Wood. So everybody was wearing like pants, you know, for the longest time. And then out of nowhere, it just got hot because that's freaking Missouri weather, right? And so he came to PT with shorts, and it just looked like 2 little strings hanging out the shorts, right? So I just instantly started laughing. Like I couldn't help it. I show up, I see it, I just start laughing. And so he's like, "Hey, what the fuck's so funny?" And so like I'm just looking. I'm like, "Bro, is it Flamingo Day? Like, what is this?" Right? And I said it right, and then he's like,
You told your drill
yeah, I told my
sergeant
drill
that?
sergeant that, bro. And this dude, he was just like, he starts like kind of laughing too, because he got out of character, right? Everybody's laughing, and then he's like, get your ass out of here, right? So I'm fucking like jogging, right? And I'm seeing him from the inside, and he's just shaking his head, but he's like grinning, like I know that shit.
Yeah,
Like
that was
it made
funny
him
as
laugh,
fuck.
and it just made me laugh. The because I'm telling you, it's like, dude, he was such like a stocky dude, but then just shorts, just looking.
He said,
It was so
Flamingo
fucking
Day?
funny, bro.
Safe around this motherfucker.
Dude, yeah, he skipped leg year. I was like, shit, bro. But that's the type of shit, bro. Just funny because like everybody thinks like, oh, once you just go in the army, you're just gonna change completely. It's like, nah, bro. Like there were some rough days, bro, because I was just like I let the evil thoughts win, bro, and I was like, bro, that's too funny.
I'm dying,
Yes.
dude. We got to show the
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
leg here.
I'm using that.
Oh, dude. And what?
I'm
And
a
that.
different crowd. I'm gonna act like it's mine.
The last thing I'm gonna say is real quick. When I say that you guys say that you're lazy, it's been the best contribution from Abel to my life is to have that about him, because it's not laziness in the fact that like I want this but I'm not willing to do it. It's a character trait that's like, I know what I have, I know what I want, and I know what I don't want. And just because you value it doesn't mean that I'm going to. So you could want to be a millionaire. You could want to have all this stuff. You can want to. I don't want that. And I'm not going to do all these things just because you value it. So I find myself constantly chasing all those things to try and be the best I can all the time, to the point where I'm overly stressed. And he's like, why? Why?
Abel's just like,
Yeah,
just
just,
like, you
yeah,
gotta
Shaq.
chill.
He's like,
You gotta chill, my
brah,
boy."
listen,
Yeah,
brah,
he's like,
listen.
You gotta chill, bro.
He's like, just chill. It's cool. You got it now. If you're happy, you're hanging out with your boys, we're having drinks, we're happy. It's not getting better than this. We can add more money. We can drive nicer cars.
It costs a lot of money, man.
What's that?
So a bottle of booze and your friends doesn't cost a lot of money.
Exactly. So it's like we could have more money and do more things, but we're still, at the end of the day, all we want is to hang out with good families that love us, and then hang out with their boys every once in a while, crack a bottle, and enjoy life. It
It's so
doesn't
funny,
get any
bro.
better than that.
Because, like, I don't know if anyone told you the same thing, but yeah, dude, the whole time, bro. That's like, he used to work out with me before boot camp. We were like going to the track, we would go running, and yeah, he was just like, every time he's like, "Why are you doing this again?" And he's just like, he's like, he's like, you know, he's like, you know.
Get a job.
And then I'm like telling him, I'm like, yeah, I don't really like people tell me what to do, and he's like, wait, back up. He's like, so you're gonna join? He's
like,
and, yeah, he's like, it shit's not adding up, bro.
Pissed off God. No, seriously, Doc. Have you ever analyzed a wet dream? I mean, the mind is so powerful that it can give you a dream so real that it makes your dick come. Why can't you harness that power when you're awake? Why can't you meditate yourself into thinking that you're fucking a chick so hot that you actually orgasm?
Wait, are you talking about like jerking off without using any hands?
No, Doc, I'm talking about fucking any girl you want, all in your mind. But it's so
All right, pause.
A little Hummer at feast.
He's got a point.
He seriously has a point.
He seriously has a point. Why can't we make ourselves while we're awake without touching our? But you could do it in your sleep.
This is an important topic, and I was hoping we'd get to this.
This is the most important topic of this entire episode. How did we never think about this? You could have a wet dream, and your mind could make you bust, but awake, no matter how hard you try, there's no way that you're gonna make yourself do that without touching your.
I don't know. It is funny though. Like some of these conversations that you'll have with your friends, like especially deployed, it's like the wildest you'll ever hear. At the same time, you're like, got a point. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this guy could be like fucking just, you know, like terrible in a lot of aspects, but he turns into Aristotle when he's thinking about this shit, you know? It's like, it's crazy, bro.
I think there should be an experiment out there that dives into this. Yo,
I would take part.
Yo, how many problems would you solve if all of a sudden we could just do that? You would just see so many dudes in the corner like,
dude, you imagine lazy guys that don't want to talk to chicks to do anything, bro? They would never leave their house, bro. They would just be, okay, I'm taking it out. Just fucking, that's it, bro. It'd be terrible, bro.
You're at the bar and a hot girl walks in, you're like, yeah.
Sir, I just got off the neck with CENTCOM and he has been given full command authority.
Back channel authority. For all intent and purpose, I'm not here. Now, gentlemen, this man is the mission. We have good reason to believe that Ali Hassan al-Majid, aka Chemical Ali, is holed up in Ashatra. This is Brigadier General Zaid al-Hamadi, commander of Liberated Iraq's 1st Brigade of Freedom Fighters. Trained with our assistance, they're moving into position after dark. Advanced units will...
All right, so clearly this is an SF team. And if it doesn't say that, obviously, but it's obvious based on what they're doing and who they're doing it with. If this was a tier 1 element, they're going after a high value target. If this was a tier 1 element, they wouldn't be working with a partner force. That's our job. We train, advise, and assist partner forces, even if they're 12, apparently.
Running the helmet backwards. I was like, no, man.
So the SF guys, and if you watch the episode throughout, I'm pretty sure that the Marine that they're going in to save doesn't exist. So the whole thing was a ruse to get them in the position and give them authority to go in. So the Marines kind of like got them all the way to that point, staged it, and were cleared. And then the SF guys came in to get their HVT and basically big all the Marines.
it just sucks the way he did it. He's like, no, you're not hearing me, Colonel.
Yeah,
like,
this is what's happening. You see the truck behind me driving? That's not
dude, it
contingent on your answer.
They're just like carrying the RPGs just nonchalant too, bro. I was just like, oh, man.
Because at the end of the day, like, if that fight, we don't need to use that fighting force. If our commandos are, we know they're, sometimes they're good. Sometimes we have a really good SOC, and sometimes we don't. So if we don't have a good group of commandos, because commando, you know, or whatever force you're working with, they have their tier 1 elements. They have their CAG level elements. They have their special operations elements, because we design most of them for them, right? So they have their ranger elements. So if we have a good one that we're working with, then we'll use them. If we don't, cool, we'll use them to where, all right, you guys pull security and just stay here, and we'll go and kill the HVT.
So what tier do you think that was riding by right now?
Yeah. That was the lowest tier. That was the we don't plan on using you for very much tier. Or we could use them entirely.
Like just to like hold it down, like basically, like, or support you guys. Or...
It's almost better if you just push them in completely first.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they're using them as meat shields, but it's their country, so you can't feel bad about it. It's like, listen, I trained you how to shoot. I taught you how to shoot, move, communicate. I gave you all the knowledge that I can give you. It's your time to go attack this guy. And so he pulls up the card, which is common for, you know, high value targets. You'll have the deck of cards, which is all your, you know, most wanted guys in country. So when he shows them the deck of cards, he's saying, I'm SF and we need this guy.
And how long do you guys, like, Because I mean, obviously, like those guys didn't look super trained, right? Just based off of this. Again, I don't know if it's just for the show purpose, right? But like, how long do you guys get to actually train like a force for? You know?
So it'll be one Green Beret team is training them for a while, and then they switch out, right? Because we're switching out every 4 to 6 months, and then we come in and they're like, hey, you guys are now with second SOC, and it's like, these are our guys. So then we'll train them for a while. So a lot of these guys have been trained by SF guys for years and years and years. So I've never seen a truckload of kids.
I was gonna say, so in your opinion, was that like a bad representation of like, okay.
For sure.
Okay.
And has that happened? I'm sure it has, when they have all their fighters are just happen to be young kids, young guys. But I've never seen that. All our guys were very seasoned because, again, they fight day in and day out. We go home, they don't. When we cycle out of our deployment and start, redeploying home, they stay there because they live there and they fight year in and year out, day in, day out. So
see, that makes more sense. That's why I was like, and I seen this and I just thought it was kind of like overdone, obviously, for like, so that's the thing. It just killed me though. Cause if you look at that scene, like, yeah, there's a kid wearing the helmet all bad and stuff. And I'm like, dude, if these guys have been training, for 6 months, like at the very least, they're going to look right. You know what I mean? Even if they're not like super tacticians.
I think the goal with the scene was to make it look like we're taking it away from Marines to give to these locals that are untrained and too young, and it's like they're making it look like, oh, this is just this ridiculous move. But in reality, it's like, no, we train them. We gave them a lot of supplies, because we're giving them our supplies. We're bringing supplies for them. We're training them. We have air assets that you don't have. We have comms that you don't have. We have JTACs. We have all this resource that you don't have that we're essentially giving to these guys, or just doing it ourselves. Because if they really are incompetent, we're not going to just send them in and be like, well, we screwed that mission up.
Yeah, because I guess that's the whole thing. That's why I hate that scene, because it just seems so like polarized, right? You got like the Marines like right there, and then you got this like you said, it's like a truckload of kids that are flagging everybody with RPGs. And it's like, bro, I don't think that's like a good representation of what the product that like anybody that's trained anybody, that's what they put out. You know what I mean?
we wouldn't just.
So it's crazy
because we have to go with them. So like I'm
like, hey,
not
bro,
gonna go with those kids, Like I've been in combat where I just leave all my friends. I have no more Green Beret friends. It's me and like 15 commandos. And it's like, well, this is my work. I trained them for, a lot of Green Berets trained them, but I trained them for the past, 3 months. I'm going into combat with them now. These are my guys. My buddy's off with his guys, with his 15 guys. I don't have the luxury like SEALs and CAG. I don't have the luxury of going to war with my guys. And that's what people don't get and understand about Green Berets, and why it's kind of it's its whole other animal, is like a team of SEALs goes to war with a team of SEALs. A team of CAG guys goes to war with a team of CAG guys. Rangers go to war with Rangers. A Green Beret goes to war with a bunch of commandos he's never met in his life until 3 months ago, and the only guy he trusts is going off in the other direction with his group of commandos. So now you're by yourself with all these guys that could potentially want to kill you. So now I have to protect myself, and then I have to guide them and use their equipment and their lack of desire a lot of times to try and win my piece of the pie. So,
what could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong, bro? It's so easy.
So it's like people don't understand that a lot of times like the Green Beret mission sucks ass and is a lot harder than like a SEALs mission or a Ranger or Dev group or CAG, because like we don't get the luxury of having the guy I trained with for the past year and a half or a year that I know has my back, that I know how capable he is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, their habits, probably what they're gonna think. Like
I trust them.
It's crazy. Yeah.
They're Americans, which is pretty sweet with me. Like we're both Americans.
Like here's your 50 commandos, bro. They're like, hey, but just get the mission done.
Yeah. That one, that one kind of look at you funny. He might kill you, so just be careful. And it's like,
yeah, he hates guys with colored eyes, so just be careful.
Best stop them.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, pause.
Why he didn't stop at all warning shots.
That's absolutely breaking.
Yeah, that's like, I think that's everybody's worst fear. At least like for mine, like ever like having to go into like some more sort of engagement and hurting like the wrong person. You know, like that's rough.
And I have 2 daughters.
Yeah,
and that would destroy me.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I feel like I'm doing pretty good with my PTSD because like I have it a lot, but like the people we killed were all military age males that were fighting us. We can confirm that. We always did BDAs, battle damage assessments, and we checked the bodies. We know we killed the dudes. And so I didn't have any of these situations, and this is why the show's so hairy, because they're always like on the borderline of civilians and enemy, as to where when I was in combat, it was like, or the combat that I was in, it was so much better than that because it was like enemy only. Like they knew we were coming, the women and children fled, and the enemy fighters stayed. So it was basically like best case scenario. And so to see this scene, it was like heart-wrenching. And honestly, this would ruin me as a man. I wouldn't be where I am today, for sure, if this instance happened and I was the one that pulled the trigger.
No, there's no way to live with that. Like
No.
knowing that you participated in like something like that. One thing that I always feel like sometimes people like we were talking about, they're like, oh, you know, I want to get in combat, I want to do this and stuff. It's like, yeah, but there's like, you know, there is hairy situations in combat and stuff, and like every era is a little bit different, right? Like, you know, Vietnam era was probably terrible because, you know, all the different guerrilla warfare, right? The beginning of the war, they would be, you know, there's different like tactics, and sometimes like women and children were used, you know, and that sucks, man, because just like you said, it's like you don't know. Kind of like it's not like an environment where you know it's only bad guys here, you know, like you're free to go, you know.
Yeah,
So
you don't
to me,
get
it's
that
like
luxury.
yeah, like I feel grateful that like we came into an era where it's a little bit different, because I imagine like the, you know, there's people that had to deal with stuff like that, like all the different collateral damage, like, you know, stuff, and even collateral damage, you can't even call it that. It's like you screwing up and like killing somebody that didn't deserve it. Like that would suck, you know.
Yeah, it really is a depressing episode. So, all right, guys, hope you enjoyed that depressing ass episode
I know he's
of
like-
Generation Kill. I hope because I'm watching it as I go, so and we're reacting to it in real time for me. So I hope it gets better from this one, because the show was kind of on a high note, and then this episode kind of brought it down for me a little bit. But
was a bummer.
hopefully it gets a little better, and we'll see you guys on the next one.